Like in terms of my karate, I think I think well, I've been rejected a couple of times, so like that is always best thing that ever happened, because it's like, okay, right, okay, this is going to boost me again. This is going to kind of keep me going, and keep making me more focused and more focused.
Jordan, and welcome to the Invisible Sensei podcast. The Invisible Sensei represents the master in all of us. Style is a construct. The path is personal, with mountains, valleys, and rivers to cross. You are the sensei, the student, the beginner, or the master. Here are my thoughts on how I walk, run, stumble, and stand through mine. Feel free to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And remember, it's not what we say when everyone's listening. It's what we practice when no one is watching that creates your Invisible Sensei.
I left the instructor's course physically knowing what I could do, or physically knowing karate, physically knowing my karate. You train that intensity and you get that connection with your body. So I knew it, and then I was a 29-year-old fourth dan, arrived back in Europe, and I wasn't Japanese, and I was trying to build up the JKS. And at the time, there was one other club in Europe that was JKS, a club in Switzerland, and that was it. I set up the JKS GB in Ireland, and we had two dojos over here and two dojos in England, and that was it. And I was like, okay, how am I gonna make my mark? And it was about taking what I physically knew and taking physical intelligence and trying to translate that to conceptual intelligence that I could explain and help. And that initially started with biomechanics. Okay, this is what your body does. And this is what I'm doing. And over the years, that's morphed, and it still is a lot of that. But I think as my understanding of karate, my own karate increases, then I kind of have drifted a little bit more away from the bog standard nuts and bolts of karate, of physical movement, and a little bit more nuanced. So like now I talk quite a bit about the fascia, even though that's kind of like debatable whether it works or not, and a little bit more about kind of internalizing it. So yeah, that's changed.
Make fascia great again. That's all I'm going to say about that. Make fascia great again.
Yeah, I have Steve Ubel Sensei, who's a great inspiration to mine, who trained with Nakayama Sensei and lives in San Diego. He's like, rubbish, nothing to do with it. I have a friend, student of mine, who's a Shodan, but is also a specialist surgeon at the big sports clinic in Ireland. And he's like, nah, it's nothing. And then I'll talk to some other people. Like I was at a physio, my physio the other day, and he's completely about fascia, all about fascia. So, I just think that web across your body, like yes, it can't be tensed, and yes, you can't kind of control it, but those chain reactions can be used. And I think you've got to go beyond just the physicality of moving the muscles of your limb in order for your limb to create power. I think the whole kind of wave of creating movement is a much more effective way, because we're always fighting kind of the tension of your muscle, which robs speed. We have to tense our muscle in order to fire it, and then instantly relax it. And the more you tense, it's going to rob speed, and speed is the engine of power. So work in progress.
It's interesting. Yeah. You talk about relaxation, because it kind of brings me neatly to talking about your wonderful book, Karate Stupid. Now it's termed, if you look on the cover, it's a true story of survival. I got it a couple of years ago. Yeah. And really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it because in Māori culture, in my culture, there's a thing called tohe. Tohe means a rite of passage. And when I read that, I'm going, my gosh, I'm learning about this man's rite of passage. There was some wheeling, there was some dealing, there was some anxiety, depression, physical ailments, brutality, friendship. It's if you get a chance to read it, I will put it here. I'm going to put it here so you can see it. Okay, so get to it, and the follow-up book. You talked about a particular sensei that you trained with, and his whole speciality during that period of time was moving at a very, very slow pace, a very relaxed, almost Tai Chi-esque. And you described how when he actually applied it, you said, and I hope you don't mind, you did say that you felt like it was one of the hardest blows you'd ever received. Can you kind of expand on that a little bit? I mean, and that must have been an
Yeah.
interesting experience.
You know, I used all different names in the book, but the person I was like, so I can't remember I can't remember what I called him in the book, so I'll just call him by his real name, Isaka Sensei. So Isaka Sensei, he was an old JK instructor, and then he moved to the he was then when the split happened, he was with the Asai Sensei fraction of the JK, and then when we lost the court case and called ourselves JKS, there was a split again. He went with Yohara Sensei for a while, and now he's just kind of independent. And he was a unique character, a really unique character. And I never trained with him on the instructor's course, but leading up to getting the instructor's course, I trained with him every week. And he was very mindful of everything that he did. I mean, very unique in the whole, not only his karate, but his whole lifestyle and how he lived. He was like almost like a monk in his life, you know, very austere, very, very austere life. And he would work a lot on his back muscles and how to kind of manipulate his like rhomboid muscles and using them to kind of create this wave. And it would all be that slow micro control of his body. And it being would have been 26 at the time, training with him through that period. I often thought, like, what am I doing? Well, I know what I'm doing. I'm coming to this class just so I can get on the instructor's course. I'm showing my face at every single class I can, just so someone will go, oh, well, he's keen, let's let him on the instructor's course. But there the value ended until he hit me that time. Blindingly fast, 3 hits, dun, 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 feeling like that. And I thought, well, Jesus, like, I didn't even see that happen. You know, then you start to think, well, hang on, there must be something in this. And I mean, I kind of at the time dismissed it because then I was, you know, to the next class and then to the next class and then on the instructor's course. And it was only when I left Japan, I guess, and started to kind of think about what I was doing and how I was doing it, that I looked back at those classes and thought, okay, now it resonates a little bit more. Yeah, I wouldn't kind of, I think it's often in my life, like I've come across these people who have specialized in such a dedicated, myopic way that I go along and I kind of feel guilty by gleaming off what they've developed and going, thank you very much. I'm going to take that. Now they give it freely, or, you know, you're like, in some cases you're paying for the privilege of learning from them. And so they're getting, you know, but generally speaking, I've been exceptionally lucky by very senior instructors teaching me what they have. And all that knowledge, what they have, has been really hard earned through a whole host of severe and austere kind of factors of their life. And then I take it on board and go, right, well, I'm going to incorporate that into my karate now. But sometimes, like, especially with Isaka Sensei, they've done it to the detriment of any other aspect of not only their karate, but maybe also their life. And so, you know, so that's all Isaka Sensei did, was those slow movements. Now, at the end of the day, he could produce the results, but I think karate is far more wider than what he did. But the thing that he did focus on, he developed to such an extreme level that then people like me and other people could then glean from that and incorporate into their karate.
If you get a chance to read this book seriously, for me, it's blood, sweat, and tears. And, you know, going back to the rite of passage, did you learn from that experience? Would you say you learned what to do or what not to do?
I would argue that there was nothing that I learned or experienced on the instructor's course that would say, right, I'm never going to do that. Because all of them now, so okay, so there's lots of things that I wouldn't do. So like the severity and the bullying, the hazing, the kind of pushing. I think bullying has a negative effect, right? It has a negative connotation. And I'm sure people on the outside would go, well, that's just bullying. I don't ever consider myself being bullied. I was being pushed in the extreme and using lots of methods that work in order to push someone to the extreme. On the outside, if you look at, like, I don't know, elite forces, on the outside, it probably looks like they're being bullied, when they're being pushed. But on the inside, it's like, no, this is what needs to be done. So I'd never say bullying, but what I would say is that they were doing the best they could do in the circumstances that they were in. And I hold no animosity to any of them. Even what happened afterwards, I'd hold no animosity because they were just doing the best they could do in the circumstances. They want, and they continue to want, to produce some of the physically best karateka in the world. And that's what they do. And that's how you have to do it, I would argue. And I'm sure there's lots of people that would argue that there's other ways, and that might be true too. But within the culture, within the circumstances, within the environment that is the instructor's course, that's probably a good way to do it. So I wouldn't come away and going, that doesn't work, because it obviously does. What I would come away with and going, right, well, what do I want to do? Do I want to try to emulate the instructor's course in Japan, in Ireland? Well, or do I want to treat regular students like I was treated? Well, obviously not, because my desire, my goals are very different. I want to have a functioning community, a healthy functioning community that is spread out all over, well, now spread out all over the world. So how do I do that? I can't replicate what happened in Japan, because it wouldn't produce the same results. But I would replicate certain elements of it. And so, morning train, my instructor's training at the dojo, and the guys that and women that take part in that, then I'm taking certain elements of it, but not all of it. That's not to say that the things that I leave behind, I reject as not working. They just produce different results that I'm not really particularly interested in.
I just want to sort of say, while we're on this, I really enjoyed the book. It came at a really good time in my life in terms of just keeping me motivated. It terrified the shit out of me. Some of the stuff you went through, I'm not a huge fan of some of the hazing and just the straight out bullying. I don't like the whole senpai kohai. I understand the senpai kohai relationship, but I don't like the way that it is twisted. And I think it's really nice to hear that. You talked about when I was on your podcast, you talked about, the desire to create brothers and sisters rather than fathers and mothers, so to speak, people who sit on pedestals, which I really like. And I think that's what senpai kohai is about. Yeah. So you spend you've spent a bit of time in Okinawa. You take your students to Okinawa. Yeah. So I guess why and what is it? Well, why I'm an Okinawan Gojiru. I love Okinawa and Gojiru and blah, blah. So preaching to the choir. But that seems to be something which is quite odd, considering that for Shotokan, a seemingly mainland style, that you would give them that experience. Why? What is the difference? And what are your general thoughts?
When I initially went I was first in Okinawa in 2007, and it was for the JKS World Championships. And it was 50 years anniversary of Funakoshi Sensei's passing, and there was a big kind of monument kind of dedicated to him, and we had the World Championships. And so at that time, it was just, we had a seminar in the Budokan, Shotokan seminar, and then World Championships. But, Okinawa's beautiful, it's like tropical paradise, certainly back in 2007, like it was not like what it is today, And so I always had an inkling of going back. And then in 2013, which was the last trip that I took to Japan, which I was JKS, I'd take a trip every single year to Japan, and we'd go to the Hombu Dojo and we'd do the training, intense, tough training, but basic training. And then we'd visit a few sensei in different dojos, and then we'd finish with some nice break R&R type place. And I just wanted something different, like, because I was taking trips to Japan every single year. I was taking 2 weeks out of my life, taking 2 weeks away from my family, and I didn't get paid for it. It was something that I had to do, but I also wanted to make sure it was something I wanted to do. And so I was constantly looking for, like Simon Bly says, karate adventures. And so I was looking for something interesting. And so I got a contact in Japan, in Okinawa, Stephen Lyons, and I was like, okay, if we go, can we go to different dojo, different schools? And he's like, yeah, no problem. What do you want to do? And I was like, well, okay, great. I want to do Goju-Ryu and I want to do Shitoryu. He's like, yeah, no problem. Blah, blah, blah. A couple of days here, a couple of days there. And I was like, okay, this is great. So we went in 2013, and it was just amazing. And I did expect go to train with these guys, looking for, I wonder what's different. And all I could see was similarities. Oh yeah, that's what we do. Oh yeah, that's what we do. And certain things were reinforced. Like, so like an obvious example would be like the idea of shime. Like very few people, maybe a bit now, but very few people were talking about it within the Shotokan world. Like I used to teach a little bit of it, but it wasn't mainstream particularly. And then I went to Okinawa, and it was all about shime. You keep that shime. I was like, oh, okay. It kind of gave me confidence to go, right, I'm going to talk about this more, so yeah, just similarities. And everything else was, the only differences were superficial. Oh, we do this kata, we do this kind of movement. That's just superficial nonsense. Everything on a fundamental basis was the same.
Or you have described yourself, I don't think you walk around with it on a t-shirt, as being essentially an optimist. And it kind of comes through in your writing. It comes through in your karate, and also comes through in the relationship that you have with your senior students. You've created the HDKI. So you've done a number of things. So you're an author. So you've done karate stupid. You've done karate clever. Are you karate wise yet?
So no. I'm gonna write a make it a trilogy at some point. And it'll be Karate Adventures. That's the last in the long suffering trilogy of my autobiography. And I'm just waiting for me to have enough life experience to write about. Certainly, first book was 5-year period. Second book was a 10-year period, and I think the last installment will be a 10-15-year period. So kind of going whole end of the WTKO period and the creation and building hopefully of the HDKI seems to be going in that direction. So yeah, but certainly not karate wise. Karate Adventures. I'd rather be a bumbling idiot having a karate adventure than a wise guy going, oh yeah, I know everything. Like who's that guy? No one's that guy.